So hello and welcome, I'm Frederick Dunn and this is The Way to Be. This is going to be a long video and it's very slow paced, so if you're in a hurry for information, this is not going to be the one for you to watch. Now what we're looking at here is a swarm that was featured in a recent video that I did where the swarm was spread across several different branches. Now they've been collected. And when I vacuumed it up, it's such a large swarm that in order to keep them from suffocating in the Colorado Bee Vac boxes, we spread them out through 3 different boxes. And then by listening to the different boxes, we could tell which one had the queen in it. And of course, when you're using the Colorado Bee Vac, the exhaust port on the vacuum will have pheromones going out of it. And you'll see bees flying into that exhaust of your vacuum when you've got the queen inside. Now, I don't need more bees. I don't need to expand my bee yard. I don't need to create another hive because I think my apiary is pretty well saturated. So hive number 1 right here is extremely low performing. So when I look through this 10 frame length throughout the deep box, and now I've added a medium, because we're going to be putting a large swarm in it, I found very, very low productivity and no evidence of the queen. So it seems like they've been queenless. Now this is one of the things that a lot of people have reported this year in my area, problems with their queens. So why not take swarms, install them in low performing colonies that may either have a low performing queen or no queen at all, and that way we don't have to expand the hive, we don't have to extend the apiary beyond its reasonable function. We want it to be efficient. We don't want to overexploit the region here. We have stormy skies. In fact, storms are on the way. So I have 1 day to get these in, and we've split the swarm up as I've said before. The box that I think the queen is in, I went ahead and I put on top of the hive, and we put a bee escape underneath made by Ciracel. Happens to be my favorite bee escape, and what that does is it makes it so that the bees move out of that box through the bee escape into the lower boxes, and they cannot return to the upper box, which is the Colorado Bee Vac box. I'm also using an Apiary Nuke Super just as a support because for what I'm about to do, I want the hive boxes to be in direct contact with the hive. If you notice, these Colorado Bee Vacs have what I call cookie sheets. I don't know what they're really called, but it allows you to pull them out in increments and get your bees to go places you want them to go. Or while it's on top of the hive, you pull that cookie sheet out completely and it opens it up to the hive below, which normally works really well, but in this case, as you can see, we've got 3 boxes to install. So what we're going to see is a very slow progression. We're going to see how the bees react. First of all, the top box, which has the queen in it, we want them to go down, but it doesn't appear that they did that because we have very low activity. You're going to want a seat, you're going to want something to drink, and this is going to take a long time. So this 27-minute and 58-second video is condensed. What you're about to watch took a lot of hours. And actually it's good for you, I think, to watch. We have a drone there on the left and a dead bee in the center. And the colony, just as I mentioned before, seems to be dwindling. I don't see evidence of disease. I think what really happened is they've lost their queen. So it was a single deep, and we swapped that out. So now I'm going to slide the cookie sheet just a little bit. And we want the bees, of course, to come out and zip right into the hive and take it over and start production and restore it to full function. There are some workers in there. There's plenty of drawn comb in that first box. In fact, all 10 of those lengths throughout the frames are drawn. There's honey in there. There's plenty of pollen, but the pollen actually is pretty old. So by old I mean it is shiny, it's got a lot of beeswax mixed in with it, it's got honey mixed in with it, it's past its fermentation stage, which means it's still usable to the bees, but it's not fresh. So that tells me, because there's no active brood in the hive, that they really need help. So, wouldn't you think that after being kept overnight, that the bees in these boxes, including the one on top, would be just anxious to get right down there and take the colony, take the hive over, and absorb that workforce and just include them in this new community of bees. Bees are social after all, and they have a habit of just joining up with each other. In fact, bees that are foraging out and about are often apt to just land on another colony's landing board and just join up, go in, bring in their resources. So we know that the bees that swarmed are full of resources. They should be welcome anywhere. In fact, they loaded up on honey before they left. Sometimes when you're looking at a swarm on the branches, you'll see that there are bees even with pollen on their legs, which means that they didn't even get a chance to unload their groceries when they got back to the hive. The swarm happened, and they departed with them. So these bees are scooting all over, and just in case you didn't notice, they're not doing what I wanted them to do. What they did, and I only opened one box first, the bottom box. They came out of that box, and they've gone up to the upper box, which is where the queen is, and they're scenting her pheromone through those cracks. Now I could have blocked that up. I could have wrapped it with cellophane or some kind of tree wrap or something like that, which I've done in the past. It cuts off the light, shuts down some of the ventilation up there, and gets the bees that are inside that box to go down into the boxes below. Now, as I mentioned before, this is a game of patience. It also just gives me a chance to sit, stare at bees, see what they do, see how they interact, see how they communicate, and what inspires them to go from one place to another. So here they are, spreading their pheromones. If you want to know what direction the bees want each other to go when they're spreading their pheromone, it's whatever direction their head is facing. So these bees, with their abdomens facing up, their heads facing down, they want the other bees in the area to go in the direction that they're facing. And the bees that are in this bottom box are just scooting everywhere except the entrance that I want them to go into. You would think, with the queen in the top box, that they would smell her pheromone through the entrance and they would all scoot right in there. Well, they are actually going to do that. There's a couple checking it out right now. This is a democracy, as Dr. Tom Seeley says. The honeybee democracy means that lots of bees need to agree on what to do, but there is one bee inside this entire collection that can make the final decision. She can decide not to enter, and she can hold things up. So we have conflicting information here, if you haven't noticed. We have bees fanning their pheromones to the sides, fanning their pheromones up, fanning their pheromones down. But the ones that are my favorites are the ones that are actually starting to walk through the entrance. Once they do that, if they like what they find, and hopefully they're smelling the pheromone from their own queen, they will fan that out through the entrance, and then more bees will follow suit. So what I want to happen is for these Colorado Bee Vac boxes to empty themselves. In other words, I want the bees to voluntarily walk out and walk in where I want them to be. That's why also it's important that these boxes be in physical contact with the landing board of the hive I'm hoping to get them into. And then once I see that consensus, once these bees have decided to go in and occupy the hive that I want them to occupy, that's when I'll open the second box up. Now keep in mind, these were all taken from the same swarm, but the swarm was large. That means you do have the potential for there to be more than one queen bee. But I can tell you ahead of time, there is just one. And later on, I actually saw her and I grabbed her. So that's also going to help me influence the colony. But for now, we're just going to watch and see what they do, see how they cluster. This can be nerve-wracking for people that just want everything to be textbook. Well, let me tell you about honeybees. The more you watch them, the more you learn about them, the more you appreciate how complex they are and how they may not always behave in a way that you want them to. And then that leaves you to figure out why they did what they did, why they went where they went, and why they're behaving the way they're behaving. So right now, of course, they're queenless. They're searching around for their queen. They're going everywhere. And just like ants, they follow pheromone trails. They put their pheromones into the air, and they follow the pheromones of those that have gone before them. So apparently they are smelling the queen in here, and they're moving into the hive. That's good news. We're only 10 minutes into the video, and they're doing kind of what we want them to do. And of course, the other thing is, when we looked at the beginning of the video, it was early morning. Therefore, the activity around all the beehives in the bee yard is low. But now the temperature is getting higher, but we have overcast, variable weather conditions here today. So it's not the best time to be messing with your bees, because if they fly away, they navigate by the sun, landscape features, and things like that. So my goal in keeping them overnight was maybe they'll be more willing then to leave these boxes and go straight into wherever they find a cavity that's suitable for them to occupy. So we have 10 deep frames, we have 10 medium frames, and now we're opening the second box up above. And look at these bees. I like them better than the box down below because they were more than willing to scoot right out. Look how motivated they are to come out and join right into that pheromone stream being generated by the other bees that have already come out earlier. And they're going to scoot right down the front of the hive, and they're going to go right inside. So that's good news. They're going in. Now this is a great way to handle late season swarms. It's the end of June after all. So there's a saying, swarm in May, it's worth a load of hay. Swarm in June is worth a silver spoon, and a swarm in July, you may as well just let them fly. So rather than letting them fly, today, by the way, it's the 1st of July. So we're looking back on late June here, and I've decided to collect swarms and just use them to amend the workforce of an existing colony that might not be performing well. And we have a lot of choices and options when it comes to that. But because they already know that this colony needed a new queen, I decided to move the swarm intact. And if they have multiple queens, let them decide which one they're going to follow. And then the other one can just be an outcast. So a laying queen, by the way, would have the strongest and most appetizing pheromone for them to follow. So she would win the politics here. She would win the pheromone lure contest. A virgin queen could just be seen scooting around, ignored by the other bees. So, I think we have ourselves the laying queen, and by the way, the first tell on that is the size of the swarm that occurred in the tree. So if you want to see that, please go down into the video description, and there'll be a link there to the precursor video that showed what this colony looked like when they were spread out on the branches of that spruce tree. So they're all going in. Lots of activity. This is going to boost a colony that otherwise would spend most of the summer just kind of plodding along. So we're going to boost the workforce. We're going to provide them with a laying queen, because otherwise the next thing that would happen to this colony is they would have laying workers. In the absence of the queen, in the absence of brood and eggs, they did not have the ability to replace their lost queen. So we're doing them a favor. We're taking everything over, and we're going to take a hive that was lacking, that probably wasn't going to survive winter, and we're going to fortify it. So they're going to bring all their resources in there, but there's a twist here. Okay, so they emptied the bottom box. Good news. They emptied the second box. Also good news. Now we have to pull this top box off, get that bee escape out of there, and put the hive's inner cover back in place and put the insulated outer cover on. That's what we did. Insulated outer cover, feeder shim, no feed for now, medium super full of foundation, that's heavy wax, and then of course we had a bunch of drawn comb in the brood box. And now we have the other box. Look what they did. Yeah, that's right. They never went down into the hive the way I needed them to do it. So I know that's annoying. You're probably thinking, what's wrong with those bees? Why wouldn't they go down there? I mean, they've been stuck for more than a day in this box up above the hive. What would keep them glued in a cluster like that? Well, the queen obviously didn't go down either. So they're connected by her pheromone. It also appears that a number of the workers did go down through the bee escape, and they're the ones that provided their pheromones down there, and this encouraged those in the other boxes to move in, so that's the good news. Now we're kind of in a pickle here. I need these bees right here to get off that screen and off that box interior and inside the hive. Because you know who's in there? The queen. So we made the right choice there. They were quiet, they were collected, so when we had 3 boxes side by side, even my grandson knew right away which one had the queen in it because they were settled. They don't settle like that unless the queen is present. So now, how do we get them motivated to follow their sisters into this hive that the other 2 boxes have already occupied? The big risk is they all change their minds. They discover that the queen is out here, and they leave the hive, and then they join them in this one box, and then we've got a massive queen cluster right there. I don't want that to happen, so the next goal is to try to find the queen. And I'm going to encourage you, if you don't already subscribe to this channel, please do, because I'm doing a series of what to do with swarms and how you can fortify your existing hives with them. I have another video coming up where we use the queen in a different way, and we'll see another dynamic of the pheromone use with your bees. So here I have some concerns. These bees are not doing what I need them to do, so it is a political competition here. These are eusocial. These workers, most of them are female. You do see some drones scooting around in here, but the work is being done by the females, and they may approve of a box that they need to occupy. But unless the queen voluntarily goes in that box with them, they will not occupy the hive. So it doesn't do me any good to have all those workers inside that hive box without a queen that can lay eggs and sustain the colony. So it was just my luck that eventually she showed herself and I was able to grab her. They've been here for a long time. They're not going anywhere. Now I could break out some swarm commander, but we've done that before. It does work. We could lure a bunch of the workers away. But I need to get the queen to go in. If she doesn't go in, the colony has no future. So they're fanning the Nasanov glands on the landing board, still trying to win over their group, and they've already taken up foraging, by the way. Bees are flying out, foraging, coming back. As I said before, this is a 27-minute video for you guys, but this is several hours of observation just to put it together. So what do you think is going to happen? How would you find the queen? If you look at the activity of the bees on the surface, they're starting to move around a little bit. That's not necessarily a good thing, because you know what they're doing? They're sending out scouts. They're disapproving of my beehive here. Their scouts are going out and finding alternate locations. They're coming back and they're waggle dancing, trying to win over their sisters and get them to leave rather than go in. I don't want that to happen, but I've decided I'm resigned to letting the bees decide where they're going to go and what they're going to do, and then we'll just take it from there. So if the cluster that's in that box flew away, I would just show that to you. What do you think they're going to do? Now it is possible that I missed a queen inside this hive, unlikely, because I did a thorough check, and they were also unsettled. Look at this waggle dancer here. She's waggling to the right, so she makes her turn. Here's what I look for. One bee doing one waggle dance in one direction is no big deal. That's no threat. She's got very little influence. However, you start to see multiple workers waggling. See that one? Waggling to the right. Waggling to the right again. Now the good news is I don't see a lot of bees paying attention to her, but the problem is it's starting to look like a flash mob. In other words, there are lots of bees providing the same waggle information. And then you'll see other bees going through, grabbing the bodies of bees and shaking them. But here's what happened. While all that was going on, I was at risk of losing the political competition here. I found the queen. I got the queen in a plastic test tube that I just happened to have with me. And then I took her down and I opened up the test tube right in front of the entrance. Look at these wagglers going in the same direction, thinking they're about to beat me out on this one. And the queen went right into the hive because she already has a number of her nest mates in the hive, and she was welcome, and in she went. Now when she does that, what do you think the Nasonov gland influences are going to do as soon as they detect that the queen just walked into their hive? They're going to go into full communication mode. They're going to wave the recall pennant. They're going to get the entire crew that's out there into that hive, and that's exactly what starts to happen. So when the queen went in, that instantly sent out a new pheromone from the bees that are already occupying the hive, and look what happens to the cluster. They don't look so settled anymore, do they? They're scooting around. They notice the absence of the queen's pheromone almost right away. So what are they doing? What they would be doing on a tree, for example, if you caught their queen. They're scouring in every direction looking for the pheromone. The first ones that find it start spreading their Nasonov, start sending out their signals that they found the queen, and for the rest of them to join in. So that's what they're doing. This is good news because we were just at risk of losing the entire swarm. But we're getting them back because one very keen-eyed, above-average beekeeper noticed the queen, collected her, and put her in the hive and changed everything. So these bees are searching for the queen. When they can't find her, they'll follow the nearest queen pheromone, which just happens to be their own queen, and then they'll all scoot right into the hive. And now look at all the communicators on the landing board at the entrance. There's new excitement. There's new inspiration. The queen is in residence. So forget that bivouac. Forget that box. Join the hive. That's what they're doing. It never gets old. I've been keeping bees since 2006, and swarm behavior, swarm management, installing swarms, those are among my favorite things to do and observe. It's dramatic. It's dynamic. You don't know what they're going to do. You could lose them all. It has happened in the past that you hive up a bunch of bees, especially when you shake them into the box, that they seem settled, that they seem like you've got them. And then the very next day you walk out there and there's one or two bees left. That's called an abscond. They abandon the hive. So for me, a backyard beekeeper, it's worth letting the bees go in. Now sure, I influenced them. I'm not going to pretend I didn't. Collecting their queen and putting her at the entrance so that she's encouraged to go in is obviously interfering with the bees. But that's part of learning how to manage your honeybees and finding creative ways to make the bees think that they made their own decisions. Get them to voluntarily get out of that box and go into that hive. And now they'll be dedicated to it. They'll be committed to your beehive, and they'll go right to work. And being that this is the end of June, they were worth a silver spoon. And now they have plenty of time ahead to bring in lots of resources. And this colony, remember, All the brood frames in that bottom box were drawn out, already had provisions in them. There's a lot of pollen in there. There's honey in there, capped honey, open honey, and plenty of space for the queen to start laying straight away. So of course we had to go to a slow motion sequence here. I want you to see what they're doing because they're so anxious to get out of that box and into that hive now, they don't even climb along the surface anymore. They just drop right out of the overhead and they're flying around, smelling the pheromones, searching for their queen. And then where do they find the pheromone? At the entrance. So where do they go? Into the entrance. So this is a lot of fun for me. It's fun to share. So I hope if you're one of those people like me who doesn't need more bees in your apiary, but yet you still manage to find swarms that clearly have come from your own hives, it's much better to cycle them right back to some colony that you already have that needs a boost. It's a good opportunity this time of year to check your hives and make sure that you have a laying queen. If you don't, find out what the queen status is. Look for queen cells. Look for evidence of brood of any age. And if those things are missing, I guess you know where your next swarm can go. Right on top of a hive. And this was a large swarm, so we are good to go. They're all happy. They're spreading their pheromone and recovering the bees that are flying around still searching for the queen. And that's what they do. They fly in circles until they find a familiar pheromone and then they join up. Now the bees that don't find their pheromone, let's say that happened, they are foragers, they are full of resources, and they can just join any hive and right on cue, it rains, thunder comes, it gets cold. And so these bees occupy this hive just in time. So I want to thank you for watching. I hope that you got something out of this. And maybe you'll think of new ways to get bees to move into hives on their own and help out a dwindling colony that you might already have. That's my grandson's beehive there to the left, the tall one. We're doing the same thing for him. Lost his queen, restored the hive with a swarm. Thanks for watching. I invite you to subscribe for more. This has been The Way to Bee.